In a highly charged episode on Judge Jeanine Pirro's courtroom show, Representative Adam Schiff unexpectedly broke down during a heated exchange. The normally composed congressman, known for his sharp critiques and steadfast demeanor, appeared visibly shaken as Judge Pirro challenged his latest political assertions. What started as a routine segment quickly spiraled into a moment of vulnerability that left viewers stunned. Judge Pirro wasted no time pressing Schiff on his recent statements regarding election integrity and national security. As the debate intensified, Schiff struggled to maintain his composure, repeatedly stumbling over his words. His attempts to deflect the judge's pointed questions only seemed to escalate the tension in the courtroom. At one critical moment, Schiff's voice cracked, and he appeared to be on the verge of tears, an unexpected display from a seasoned politician. As the exchange continued, Judge Pirro leaned in with a piercing gaze, refusing to let Schiff off the hook. She accused him of evading the truth and questioned the consistency of his public statements. Schiff, clearly rattled, tried to regain control by pivoting to broader political issues, but Judge Pirro kept steering the conversation back to the core allegations. The pressure mounted visibly on Schiff's face, and his usual polished rhetoric faltered. In a rare moment of candor, Schiff admitted that the political climate had taken a personal toll on him. "It's not just about politics anymore," he said quietly, his voice tinged with frustration. "There are real consequences, real people affected by misinformation and partisan battles." The courtroom, usually filled with tension and debate, fell into a brief, reflective silence. This emotional breakdown was widely viewed as a major error on Schiff's part. Political analysts quickly speculated that his vulnerability could be exploited by opponents and might weaken his position in upcoming hearings. Meanwhile, supporters expressed sympathy, seeing the moment as a humanizing glimpse behind the often impenetrable facade of political figures. The fallout from Adam Schiff's emotional moment on Judge Pirro's court was swift and intense. Media outlets across the political spectrum dissected the incident, with some portraying Schiff's breakdown as a sign of weakness, while others framed it as a courageous display of honesty in a brutal political landscape. Social media exploded with reactions, memes, debates, and passionate commentary flooded platforms like Twitter and Facebook, turning the courtroom moment into a viral sensation overnight. Political strategists on both sides scrambled to adjust their narratives. Schiff's critics seized the opportunity to question his resilience and leadership, suggesting that his emotional lapse undermined his credibility as a key figure in ongoing investigations. Conversely, his allies rallied to defend him, emphasizing the immense pressure public officials face and calling for greater empathy and understanding. Meanwhile, Judge Pirro herself faced scrutiny. Supporters praised her relentless questioning as essential for holding powerful figures accountable, while detractors accused her of pushing Schiff too far and exploiting his vulnerability for entertainment value. The judge responded in a follow-up interview, stating, "My role is to seek the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it may be. The American people deserve honesty and transparency from their leaders." Behind the scenes, sources close to Schiff revealed that he was grappling with the weight of multiple high-stakes inquiries and the relentless media spotlight. Friends described him as exhausted and under immense strain, a far cry from the confident public persona many had come to know. This incident, some believe, may mark a turning point, not just for Schiff personally, but for the political battles ahead. In the days following the emotional exchange on Judge Pirro's court, Adam Schiff faced a crossroads that could define the trajectory of his political career. Behind closed doors, his team worked feverishly to craft a response that balanced accountability with resilience. Schiff himself released a rare public statement acknowledging the intense pressures of public service while reaffirming his commitment to the issues at hand. "I may have shown a moment of vulnerability," Schiff said in a carefully measured tone, "but it only strengthens my resolve to fight for truth and justice. The challenges we face as a nation are real and complex, and leadership requires both strength and humanity." Political pundits debated whether this candid admission would help or hurt Schiff in the long run. Some argued that showing vulnerability could connect him more deeply with voters tired of political posturing, while others worried it might be perceived as a crack in the armor at a critical moment. Meanwhile, the ripple effects extended beyond Schiff's immediate circle. The incident reignited discussions about the emotional toll of politics and the expectations placed on public figures to remain stoic under relentless scrutiny. Mental health advocates highlighted the need for greater support for politicians facing constant pressure, urging a cultural shift in how society views political leadership. As Schiff prepared for upcoming congressional hearings, analysts watched closely for signs of how this moment had changed him. Would he double down with renewed vigor, or would the emotional weight slow his momentum? The nation watched, waiting to see if this major error would become a turning point or a stumbling block. Ultimately, Adam Schiff's breakdown on Judge Pirro's court was more than just a televised incident. It was a raw, human moment that exposed the fragile intersection of politics, power, and personal struggle in today's turbulent landscape. In the weeks that followed, Adam Schiff's emotional moment continued to reverberate throughout the political landscape, prompting a broader conversation about the human side of governance. Schiff himself seemed to embrace this new chapter, using the experience as a catalyst for change in both his personal approach and public messaging. In interviews, he spoke more openly about the immense pressures faced by politicians and the importance of mental health support within government institutions. Schiff's allies noted a subtle but noticeable shift in his demeanor, less guarded, more willing to engage authentically with both supporters and critics alike. This vulnerability, once seen as a liability, began to resonate with a segment of the electorate craving transparency and sincerity in their leaders. Polls indicated a modest uptick in approval ratings among independent voters, who appeared moved by Schiff's candidness. On Capitol Hill, the incident sparked renewed debates about the intense scrutiny lawmakers endure, often leading to burnout and emotional strain. Some congressional members called for institutional reforms, including mental health resources and wellness programs tailored specifically for the unique challenges of political life. Advocates argued that fostering resilience and emotional intelligence could improve legislative effectiveness and reduce the toxic polarization gripping the nation. However, not all reactions were sympathetic. Schiff's opponents continued to use the breakdown as ammunition in political attacks, portraying him as unstable and unfit for leadership roles. Some commentators speculated whether this moment could be exploited in upcoming election campaigns, potentially shifting the balance of power in key districts. Meanwhile, Judge Jeanine Pirro's court maintained its spotlight on accountability, with this episode becoming a case study in the unpredictable nature of live political discourse. Pirro herself remarked in a rare reflection, "Politics isn't just about power plays and strategy, it's about real people with real emotions." This moment reminded us all of that. As the nation moved forward, the incident underscored a critical truth: behind every political headline and legislative battle lies a complex human story. For Adam Schiff, the breakdown was both a major error and a profound lesson, one that could redefine leadership in an era desperate for honesty, empathy, and courage. In the aftermath of the courtroom incident, Adam Schiff took deliberate steps to reclaim his narrative and strengthen his political footing. Recognizing that authenticity had struck a chord with many, he embarked on a series of town halls and community meetings, where he spoke candidly about the pressures of public office, the toll of relentless partisan conflict, and the need for compassion in politics. These appearances showcased a more vulnerable, relatable side of Schiff that many voters had never seen before. At the same time, Schiff intensified his legislative efforts, championing bipartisan initiatives aimed at restoring trust in government institutions. His focus shifted toward addressing misinformation, election security, and mental health resources, not just for the public, but for those serving in government roles. This expanded agenda was seen by some as an attempt to turn a personal setback into a platform for meaningful change. Within political circles, Schiff's approach generated mixed reactions. Some colleagues admired his openness and willingness to adapt, viewing it as a sign of political maturity and resilience. Others remained skeptical, questioning whether the emotional vulnerability displayed on national television would have lasting political consequences. Opponents seized on every misstep, attempting to paint Schiff as inconsistent and emotionally unstable. Media coverage evolved from sensational headlines to more nuanced analyses of the human cost of political warfare. Several prominent journalists published in-depth profiles on Schiff, exploring the fine line public figures walk between strength and vulnerability, and the often overlooked psychological pressures they endure. These stories contributed to a growing public discourse on how political culture might better support the mental well-being of elected officials. Meanwhile, Judge Jeanine Pirro's courtroom moment became emblematic of a new era in political media, where raw emotion, unfiltered moments, and human complexity challenged the polished facades traditionally presented to the public. For many viewers, the exchange was a reminder that behind partisan battles lie individuals grappling with profound challenges. As election season approached, the true impact of Schiff's breakdown remained uncertain. Would voters embrace this more humanized leader or retreat to familiar, hardened political identities? The answer would not only shape Schiff's future but also signal broader shifts in American political culture. One thing was clear: Adam Schiff's moment on Judge Pirro's court had broken the mold, forcing politicians, media, and citizens alike to reconsider what it means to lead with both strength and humanity in a fractious and demanding political landscape. As the political dust settled, the ripple effects of Adam Schiff's breakdown on Judge Pirro's court began to influence not only his career but also the broader landscape of American politics. In a rare display of introspection, several other politicians came forward to share their own struggles with the emotional and mental toll of public life, sparking a quiet movement toward destigmatizing vulnerability in leadership. Schiff became an unexpected figurehead for this emerging conversation. He partnered with mental health organizations to advocate for systemic changes within Congress and government agencies, pushing for confidential counseling services, stress management programs, and wellness initiatives tailored to the unique pressures elected officials face. His efforts sparked bipartisan dialogue, as members from both sides acknowledged the need for healthier political environments, though some remained wary of appearing soft in the cutthroat arena of politics. Public opinion polls showed a slow but steady shift in how voters perceived emotional openness from politicians. A growing number of constituents expressed appreciation for leaders who demonstrated genuine humanity alongside their policy expertise. Analysts noted that Schiff's experience may have contributed to this trend by breaking long-standing taboos around emotional expression in politics. However, challenges remained. Schiff continued to face fierce criticism from opponents who weaponized the incident during campaign debates and in media appearances. Some commentators argued that emotional moments should be carefully managed or concealed to maintain an image of strength. Schiff's team responded by emphasizing the distinction between vulnerability and weakness, framing his openness as a form of courage and authenticity that could redefine political leadership. Meanwhile, Judge Jeanine Pirro's courtroom remained a focal point for tough, unfiltered political confrontations, but this particular episode inspired producers and hosts to reconsider the balance between rigorous interrogation and empathy. Some shows began incorporating segments dedicated to exploring the personal side of political figures, recognizing that viewers craved depth beyond partisan soundbites. Behind the scenes, Schiff's personal life was also impacted. Friends and family reported that he had become more reflective and intentional about balancing work and self-care. The breakdown served as a catalyst for personal growth, prompting Schiff to seek therapy and develop strategies to cope with the relentless pace of political life. As the nation prepared for a new election cycle, the legacy of Schiff's moment on Judge Pirro's court was still unfolding. It had opened a door to a more nuanced understanding of leadership, one that acknowledged the complexities of human emotion amid the high stakes of governance. Whether this shift would endure beyond the election season remained to be seen, but it undeniably added a new layer of humanity to the often harsh arena of American politics. In the months that followed, Adam Schiff's emotional moment on Judge Pirro's court became more than just a viral news item, it evolved into a symbol of a growing cultural shift within the political sphere. As political polarization continued to dominate headlines, Schiff's experience served as a poignant reminder that behind the public personas and partisan battles were real individuals struggling to navigate immense pressures. Capitol Hill began to see incremental changes inspired by the broader conversation Schiff helped ignite. Some members of Congress quietly pushed for improved mental health resources, leading to the establishment of pilot programs offering confidential counseling and resilience training. While these initiatives were still in their infancy, advocates hailed them as critical steps toward a healthier, more sustainable political environment. Meanwhile, Schiff's political narrative took on new dimensions. No longer viewed solely as a combative figurehead of partisan investigations, he was increasingly seen as a more multifaceted leader, one willing to acknowledge vulnerability while maintaining a commitment to policy and justice. His speeches began incorporating personal reflections, connecting legislative priorities with the human stories behind them. This approach resonated with a broader segment of the electorate, particularly younger voters seeking authenticity and empathy from their representatives. However, the path was far from smooth. Opponents continued to scrutinize Schiff's every move, ready to exploit any perceived weakness. Campaign ads and media commentary frequently referenced his breakdown, framing it as a lack of stamina for the demands of leadership. This tactic deepened the partisan divide, with supporters rallying fiercely in defense of Schiff's character and critics doubling down on their attacks. The media's role also evolved. News outlets began experimenting with more nuanced political coverage, blending rigorous fact-checking with human interest elements. Interviews with politicians started including discussions of mental health, work-life balance, and emotional resilience, topics once considered taboo in political journalism. Judge Jeanine Pirro's show, meanwhile, capitalized on the heightened attention. The incident became a defining moment for the program, prompting debates about the ethics and impact of televised political confrontations. Pirro herself maintained a steadfast stance, asserting that her responsibility was to hold public figures accountable without concession, but also acknowledging that the moment underscored the intense pressures politicians face. On a personal level, Schiff's willingness to embrace vulnerability appeared to foster stronger connections within his team and with constituents. Reports from his office indicated an emphasis on open communication and mental wellness initiatives, reflecting lessons learned from the public episode. Schiff's journey became a case study in resilience, illustrating how moments of perceived weakness could be transformed into platforms for growth and change. As the next election cycle loomed, political observers watched closely to see how this evolving dynamic would influence campaigns, governance, and public expectations. Would voters reward leaders who showed both strength and humanity? Or would the relentless nature of political combat demand an unyielding facade? Whatever the outcome, Adam Schiff's breakdown on Judge Pirro's court had left an indelible mark, not just on his own career, but on the broader discourse surrounding leadership, vulnerability, and the human cost of political life in America. As the political landscape entered a new season of challenges and debates, Adam Schiff's experience on Judge Pirro's court remained a defining chapter in his career and in the evolving culture of American politics. The incident, once seen as a major misstep, had grown into a powerful narrative about the intersection of power, pressure, and personal resilience. In the months leading up to the election, Schiff doubled down on his efforts to connect with voters through authenticity. His campaign ads featured not only policy promises but also glimpses of his personal journey, acknowledging the emotional toll of public service and emphasizing the need for empathy and understanding in leadership. This approach proved effective in mobilizing a diverse coalition of supporters, particularly younger and independent voters eager for change. At the same time, Schiff continued advocating for mental health reforms within Congress, pushing for legislation that would provide comprehensive support systems for elected officials and government workers. While progress was incremental, the conversation he helped spark opened doors for bipartisan cooperation on an issue that had long been overlooked. Critics, though still vocal, faced growing public resistance as the electorate's attitudes toward vulnerability and leadership shifted. Polls suggested that many voters were increasingly unwilling to equate emotional honesty with weakness, recognizing instead the strength it took to confront personal challenges openly. Judge Jeanine Pirro's courtroom episode became a case study in political media, frequently cited in discussions about the balance between tough questioning and human dignity. Media professionals began to reconsider the tone and tactics of political interviews, aiming for more thoughtful engagement rather than spectacle. For Adam Schiff personally, the journey was transformative. The breakdown that once threatened to derail him instead became a catalyst for growth, both as a leader and as a person. Colleagues noted his renewed focus on collaboration and his ability to connect with constituents on a deeper level. Schiff's story resonated far beyond his district, symbolizing a potential shift in the way Americans view their leaders, not as untouchable icons but as humans navigating an inherently difficult role. As the election day arrived, the question remained, had the political culture evolved enough to embrace this new model of leadership? While the outcome was yet to be decided, one thing was certain: the conversation Adam Schiff's moment on Judge Pirro's court ignited would continue to shape the future of American politics, reminding all that strength and vulnerability are not mutually exclusive, but rather complementary forces essential to genuine leadership. As the dust settled from the political storm, Adam Schiff's moment of vulnerability on Judge Pirro's court stood as a landmark in modern political history, a reminder that even the most powerful figures are human. The incident transcended the usual cycles of scandal and redemption, evolving into a meaningful dialogue about the emotional realities behind public service. Schiff's journey illustrated the complexity of leadership in an era defined by relentless scrutiny, polarized discourse, and the demand for unwavering strength. His willingness to show vulnerability challenged the conventional narrative that leaders must always appear invincible. Instead, he demonstrated that true strength often comes from embracing imperfection and using personal struggle as a source of empathy and connection. The political landscape began to shift, however gradually, toward a more humane and authentic form of leadership. Mental health resources for politicians gained traction, and public expectations evolved to value honesty and emotional intelligence alongside policy expertise. For Adam Schiff, the breakdown was not the end of his story but a turning point, one that redefined his role as a public servant and helped humanize the often impersonal world of politics. His experience became a beacon for others grappling with the pressures of leadership, proving that admitting struggle is not a liability, but a form of courage. In the end, the major error on Judge Pirro's court became a catalyst for change, reminding a nation weary of political theatrics that behind every headline, behind every figure, lies a person striving to lead with both strength and heart.